So welcome to another episode. Our most elusive guest, Peyton Thompson, 7-year vet. He's a busy guy. He's flipping houses, doing real estate, but he was an undrafted free agent and had a really successful career. Signed with the Falcons, had a little time with the Bears, the Redskins, and then found a home in Jacksonville for 5 years where they had one of the most amazing defenses in a long time towards the 14-15, played Tom Brady in the AFC playoffs. So we're happy to have him on the show. So welcome, Peyton Thompson. How you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. So it's when we're looking at your career, it's crazy the first 2-3 years to get in the league as a free agent. Tell us about that, because I'm sure there is practice squad and then active roster, and it's just a grind, right? You're going all through camp, and they're like, because you seem like you were on the cusp your first couple of years, right?
Yep, I was on the cusp. I chose to sign with Atlanta. They had usually keep about 11 DBs in each. So I knew that there was going to be some sort of learning curve. Like, we played some big teams at San Jose State, but just like defenses and things like that, kind of understanding the game a little bit better. So I chose to go to Atlanta. I don't even remember all the options after I didn't get drafted, but there were a couple of teams that called. I knew I wanted to go to Atlanta. They had a lot of Pro Bowlers in there. It was Brent Grimes, Dante Robinson, William Moore, and Thomas Deku. Wow. And the whole team was like an all-star team. It was crazy. I was just a Pro Bowl caliber team in every room. So I went there, and it was crazy because it was, I want to say we were 12-0 to start the season, 13-0 to start the season, maybe.
Wow.
First seed with the first week bye and all, I believe. And then, some pretty big games there. Fell short of the Super Bowl, but it was cool to be a part of that experience, even though I was on practice squad. I didn't even get active that first year.
But was that the team that wasn't the Super Bowl? Who'd you guys lose to that year? Right before the Super Bowl, right?
I believe we lost. I believe we lost to San Francisco.
What?
Yeah. You got a big Niner fan over here.
No, but hey, thank you for knocking out the Seahawks on the way to doing that. If I'm not mistaken, Roddy White and Julio were just absolutely torching the freaking Legion of Boom. So that was really nice. That was really nice.
How big was Julio? That guy was like 6'6", like 250. I mean, he was huge.
I think he's 6'3" or 6'4", and I mean that's a Clydesdale of a person.
It's like the DK Metcalf. Yeah.
I'm not the biggest guy, right? So I mean that's a big press situation. That's a big guy.
Yeah, I can imagine going against practice. You had to go against him, and then Roddy White's just fast as hell. That's brutal.
I mean, they had Tony Gonzalez on that team. We had great slot receivers like Harry Douglas. It was a good team. Like, practices were good, and that year definitely got me better and ready for, the adventure I had after that, I'd say.
So did you think you were going to get drafted, or what was the what were you? Yeah. That's hard, right? Yeah.
It was heartbroken, man. It was bad. I didn't go to the I played in the first ever NFLPA All-Star game.
Okay.
That was the only bowl I got invited to. I didn't go to the combine. I had a pro day at San Jose State, obviously, and then like a couple individual workouts where some of the scouts will come to San Jose State and you do some private workouts. That's typical protocol. But I thought I would go 5 through 7, hopefully. And then once you see you don't get paid, you're mad. You don't want to go to any of the teams that didn't pick you.
Yeah, I could see. And then because San Jose State's D1, right? You guys played, SC, Nebraska, Wisconsin, all those big schools. When did you know you're like, oh, I can play with these guys at the next level? Because I'm sure you faced a bunch of potential NFL guys. At what point did you, because you came from Granite Bay High School, they had a beast program there. You had a lot of NFL guys, Miles Burris, that receiver Slaughter guy, what was his name?
Hey, R.I.P. to Devin Wiley.
Devin Wiley, yeah, he just passed. That was really sad.
Devin, man.
Yeah, I heard that a couple of weeks ago. 'Cause I had a nutrition store in Granite Bay, and
he's a legend.
but that whole team was pretty stacked. But going from there to San Jose State. At what point did you like, all right, I can play at the next level? Was it your freshman, sophomore? Did you know in high school, or because you always had the speed, right? That was what the fast tracks you there.
Yeah, I knew in high school. I mean, my dad had a program that we came up in, and it was, I mean, you were always competing against guys like, even like Sammy Strotter that went to.
That's the guy I was thinking of, yeah.
That went to Granite Bay as well and played at Oregon State. I mean, just all the caliber of guys we had in Sacramento in total. And then, you know, I come from a football family. Playing with them, I knew at a young age I could do it even if I wasn't the biggest guy. But I would say that time when I really knew it is during the lockout. I was at San Jose State. And, you know, I'm at a smaller school. I was pretty much starting somewhere as a backfield at all times. I was playing a little bit of special teams. But our sophomore year, I believe, so that would have been 2010, the lockout. Is that the right year?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Something like that. Those guys were working out, the Niners guys were working out at San Jose State because it's closest to Santa Clara.
Oh, got it.
And we had Ted Ginn and those guys up there. And I wasn't locking anybody up or anything, but I was holding my own and I was like, okay. You know, over the fear of playing in a really big stadium, these are just guys.
Yeah.
You can find a way, you know, win plays one at a time for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I want to go back too, because I mean, you're saying you come from you know, early on that you were a football player, that it was something you liked to do. I'm of the impression that anyone who ever got to the NFL, you know, you had to pick a side, offense or defense. But when you were younger, you were probably a beast on both sides of the ball, I assume. When did you kind of decide defense was your way to go, or was that just always something that defense was always ingrained in you, or were you like thinking, maybe running back, maybe quarterback? Was there ever any other thoughts of being on offense?
Yeah, so defensive back was always ingrained in me, and then you play offense, because who doesn't want to play offense, especially if you're just like an all-around athlete, not really like position specific. So I always knew I could play defense. I didn't want to hit anybody. I didn't want to hit anybody. I was too small. I didn't want to hit anybody. I mean, I didn't break 100 pounds until I was a sophomore in high school, I think.
Wow.
And I graduated at like 152, I think.
Wow.
From high school. Yeah, I think when I went to the Nike Combine, I think I put 6 foot 185 on there. Like, I'm still not 6 foot. Clearly lied. So I left high school at like 150 something for sure.
Wow.
And so I was playing offense all through high school because I didn't want to play defense. I didn't want to hit anybody, really. I just wanted to run the ball and score touchdowns, honestly. I don't think I've ever said that out loud.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And in high school or in college, I got a little more like, just kind of wanted to like run into traffic probably my junior year. And then when I got to the league, really, is when I really wanted to actually hit people. And I really wanted to like enforce my will on people. And I don't know if that's because it's the money and there's more on the lines. You're not just playing for fun because you're in school, or if it was just, I just learned how to run downhill a little bit better and just
it was
how to fall forward and like win those battles.
It was probably the extra 20 pounds. What were you walking around in the league at?
Somewhere between, like I would go into camp just under 200. By day 3, I'd be right back at 187 consistently.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're playing at camp out in Jacksonville. Dude, it's hot as hell. You take a shower, you go outside, you're sweating. You know,
Atlanta was hot.
Oh yeah, Atlanta too.
Was hot because that's where the Skins have camp and where their home base is. And Jacksonville was hot.
Yeah, tell us about that journey. Like those 3 first teams, because you were with 4 teams total, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that whole experience, because that's wild.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
The Bears part.
No, so you go to Atlanta. Do you make it to the final cuts? Because everyone's watching Hard Knocks, right? So everyone kind of can understand. I'm sure when you're watching that, it's the same thing. You're just like, man, it brings back a lot of memories because you're going through all the hard parts, and then you don't get strap up for game 1. It's brutal, right?
Yeah, it's brutal. But the worst part is before you get put on practice squad, you get cut. And you don't actually know you're going to get put on practice squad because at that time, the way practice squad was ran, there was only 9 spots. You're going to have to check me on the actual number, but it wasn't very many practice squad spots that you were allowed. And it was really like they really weren't planning on activating you. Like they planned on you being on it all year unless they needed you for something. And you were really I don't want to say I was a practice dummy, but I would play like ones defense if somebody was out, like one of the guys just wasn't practicing that day. Maybe I would end up at nickel with the ones. I'd run with the twos at nickel, safety or corner, and then I'd run with the threes at corner, safety or nickel. And then if I wasn't doing that, your scout off running against the DBs. You got to do all the special team stuff. So just that whole year, you're really not going to get activated unless all those Pro Bowlers get hurt, which probably isn't going to happen. And we're having a great year. So I was there just, hoping to get active, but I was really just learning and trying to get better every day because those receivers are really good. So think about that confidence leap, right? You cover Julio Jones, Roddy White, and those guys, and you're actually – it's a tough balance, but you're really actually trying, even though they're out there at practice, like, trying to stay healthy and not kill too much. But I'm out there really trying to, elevate in that time. Not only did I gain that confidence, but that's kind of when people started to notice. And that's when I was able to get on other teams. So when I got released from Atlanta, I knew I was getting released. They had drafted True Font and Robert Alford in the first second round, and they already had all those Pro Bowlers in the room. I was like, oh, yeah, they're definitely cutting me this year. So I did that next camp with Atlanta. I got cut in the first cut, and then I sat at home in Sacramento working out at California Family Fitness.
Oh,
working out on the turf every day and lifting, and I sat at home until Thanksgiving.
Wow. So you thought it could have been done.
I was done. Oh, I thought I was done, but it wasn't a bad run, and I was doing well. The roster was just stacked. They're not going to cut any of those guys. And so I just was hoping I got another shot. And I ended up getting another shot, man, but Washington was tough. When I got there, the RG3 and Shanahan thing was happening.
Oh, yeah.
And so there was a lot of beef and turmoil in the facility. And then I actually got the job because I don't remember the guy's name, but he slept and missed a meeting. I think it was another bottom of the roster practice squad guy. he slept through a meeting and missed a meeting, and this is in the middle of season. This isn't like I said, Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I get the call. Remember, Doug called me and he was like, "Hey, you're going to Washington." I was like, "Yeah, sure, we're going." So, first flight out. I remember it was Thanksgiving night. Randomly, this is crazy. I think they were playing the Niners. It's like the night before Thanksgiving or on Thanksgiving, something like that. And I had to walk in the snow to go get the Little Caesars $5 hot and ready. I was already back in Ashburn while they were still playing in the game.
Got it. And then you had, that's 3 months, right? You get cut first week of August. So it's August, September, October. You're making other plans at that point, right? Like, what am I going to do with my life?
I had a little sales job for a tech company over there in Roseville. I don't even remember the name of it. I've tried to forget that. That's that memory. That was scary, man. Life got real for a second.
Yeah. No, we've all had a cubicle type job before. We know what it's like. It's not the best.
Oh, man, that got real for a second. And it's kind of embarrassing, man. You get cut. Everybody's like, man, you made it. You've been in it for a year, and then it's just kind of over. That's kind of, it hits your pride, or any way, shape, or form. It's going to hurt a little bit.
And so you go into Washington, and how does that pan out?
Washington was cool. We had a DB coach named Raheem Morris.
Oh, yeah.
He was a deep coordinator. Yeah, you guys know who Raheem is.
Oh, yeah.
He was great. He taught me a lot. D'Angelo Hall was on that team. So watching him was crazy. Super, man, high IQ and aggressive corner. That taught me a lot. But I was really just trying to get on that roster and play special teams. They really weren't giving me any love. And then I stayed on that team through the year and came back to camp the next year, and I got cooked in a game. I got cooked.
Who was it?
And I, again, tried to suppress that memory.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was, but I remember Garoppolo was at quarterback. It was twos versus twos.
Oh, you got cooked versus Jimmy G?
Versus Jimmy G. Oh. And it was man, I swear we called cover 0 4 out of 5 plays, and I'm on their sideline, and I can hear the offensive coordinator yeah, they're in cover 0 again. Oh. He was just picking down the field, and our DC really wasn't changing the calls. So I got hit on a little slant, and there's some teams, man, that they have a very negative environment or culture to where if you don't get a pass breakup or you get beat on a slant or something like that, they're really cussing at you and like kind of on you, and it makes you kind of, that gets in your head a little bit versus somebody just being like, hey, yeah, he got you on one, get the next one, right? Or something like that. And so I would say I had a little bit of anxiety at that time. So the next play, we're in 0 again. I'm kind of just like half-assing it, not really sure like what call we're in. I think I get hit on a dig or a comeback. And it was the same dude. I gave up the same play again. I was like, damn, I got hit again. Then I think we went into 2-man for one play, and then we went back to 0. They threw a fade, and he caught it. He won that battle. I was like 0 for 3 on one drive.
And so that was it.
Bro, I didn't sleep that night at all, bro. I think I was crying in the locker room at one point. I'm like, damn, I know this is going to be it. This is over. Because it doesn't matter. It's all about what you put on tape. So as well as I played in the practices, as much as I was strapping down and maybe have been on the 2s at that point, maybe had a roster spot. Not after that. All it takes is them 3 plays.
Yeah.
But again, this may be the first time I told anybody about that. So I got cut the next day, and I remember Raheem, he felt so bad. He didn't want to cut me, but he was like, you did get cooked. So
3 times. That's a rough.
That was a hilarious experience, but I was, that one puts you through your feels because you're like, now it's really over, right? Mm-hmm. And I was I sat at home for a couple weeks, and I was just on my agent's ass. I don't know how, but he got me on the Bears. The Bears called me they called me in immediately, really. And I remember I got over there. I was there all of 6 days, probably. We got to look up the activity or the transaction. I may have been there 6 days. But I flew I'd already gone back to California. So I flew from California to Chicago. I get to Chicago and I'm not practicing really because it's about to be the 3rd game of camp. And at that point, they really they're segmented on who they're going to let play and decide who's going to be on the roster. And if you come to week 2, it's not likely you're going to stay on this roster. You're here for a couple weeks to fill a seat, hold some bags and some drills, get used as a dummy. And you're going to get cut. So I knew I was going to get cut. But the crazy part is I think I got there on a Wednesday or Thursday. We go to Seattle on Saturday to play Seattle. Seattle whooped us. It was a physical beating. There were multiple starters on the Bears defense that were out, concussed, in the medical tent. Seattle put a hurt on us. It was bad. So we fly back from Seattle to Chicago. I get a call the next day, I'm getting cut. And in my mind, I'm like, why am I getting cut when the next week is when they let all the bottom of the roster guys play? And that's when they said, they're like, you're not going to know the playbook. We'll just let you play next week. But you're not going to practice this week. So I didn't practice up until the Seattle game. We get whooped by Seattle. They call me to cut me. I was like, why are y'all cutting me? I thought you were going to let me play all next week and let me put something on tape for other teams. And they were like, the GM walked in this morning and he was so mad at the starters, he just kind of swiped the whole bottom of the board.
Wow.
Off the whiteboard, and you're one of the names.
Wow. And then then what happens after that? So you're there a week?
Back to California.
Jeez.
After making that trip, I'm just flying back and forth, and it may have been a day or two. My agent called me, bless his heart, and he was like, hey, Jacksonville wants you.
Who is your agent? We got to give him a shout out because he's what a beast.
For sure. I believe they're with Wasserman now, but they were with Octagon at the time. But Doug Hendrickson and CJ LaVoy, man, they put in work for me. I guess they said Jacksonville had an interest in me pre-draft and just didn't have space or didn't get enough time for it. So, usually when teams cut, they make those final cuts, they'll bring in a fresh set of a couple practice squad guys and a couple people maybe they had to pick up as 2s or 3s at different positions for some depth. There would be a couple random free agent pickups. So they just picked me in that batch. And I stuck there for as long as I could through that AFC Championship for sure.
Yeah, and tell us about, so I played college ball, right? And I used to dream about, making it to the NFL literally for 5-6 years. So my family, Brady's family, Brady's parents and my parents are best friends. So I was watching all this. I'm like, I'm next. Tommy's slow like me. Like, I can do it, And so I used to literally for like 5-6 years dream about going to the NFL, like vivid dreams of putting on the helmet, stepping on the field, having all my family there. And I got to kind of experience that when Brady was there through all the Super Bowls. When was the first time you were active roster, and what was that feeling? Was your family there? Like, was it quick, or was it like,
Jacksonville. I was on the Jags. We were in London.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Yeah.
We're playing the Cowboys, and I'm actually active, and they're like, hey, you're going to be heavy special teams. Like, I was on every special teams. As soon as I was active, you're on everything. So I was just on kickoff return, blocking, punt return, covering a gunner. But my very first play was a gunner play. I love playing gunner. Fun fact, on punt team. I love being a kamikaze. It was a fun thing to do, but it honestly made me not want to return punts anymore.
Yeah. So
yeah, I can just take shots at guys right to the throat while they're not looking.
Oh, it's the best.
If they don't fair catch and I get there fast enough, I can take a shot.
Yeah.
Anyways, that first game in London, man, it was a great game, man. I ran down, made the tackle on punt. It was like one of my first plays. And then after that, I kind of just continued that trend. But that was the first moment I was active. Yeah. We're in Wembley Stadium. We were there for a whole week. So like you fly in, you're there a couple days early or a day early typically. We were there for 6 days before the game. So it was a whole London experience. And I was active that week practicing in London. And then like getting to Wembley being my first game. It was bro, I'll never forget it. It's just as you dreamed it. That's exactly how it is.
It gives me like chills, like just thinking about that, because I know how hard it is. That I had some buddies do the free agent thing, and it didn't ever work out, and it was such a grind. And then just even like I could imagine you in pregame having your Jacksonville Jaguars jersey on. Was your family there?
Nope, nobody.
Oh, yeah, it's in London. Yeah, but it was unreal, right? Did you feel like you were floating?
Felt like you're floating.
Yeah.
You gotta root your feet a little bit, man. Your legs will start to loosen. It'll get light on you. But yeah, it might have helped that we didn't have family and a bunch of other pressure there. Just a bunch of unknown fans in the stadium. What's really cool about London is when you go to one of those games, they have jerseys and memorabilia from all of the teams. So, there were different jerseys scattered all throughout the whole thing. But I mean, it felt like the Super Bowl. It was to them. That was the one game that's in London. And
the Cowboys. I mean, that's a huge game. I mean, any team, any game with the Cowboys is huge. So
time.
Yep. Wow.
That's that era.
And
we did not win. We did not win that game. It was a quiet 10-hour flight home.
And did you did you go off and on the practice squad in Jacksonville, or were you active roster and then stayed?
No, I went off and on practice squad. I think I got cut 3 or 4 times while I was over there.
Just in Jacksonville?
Just in Jacksonville.
Jeez, wow.
It for sure sucked. That sucked. But I was always a contender for a roster spot because my special teams was just, I was at least able to provide value there, like actual value there, and kind of lead the charge when I could, or just have like really good production. Be somebody that they could count on if they needed it. And then obviously it's twofold. You have to be accountable and game ready and field ready to go in the game on offense or defense. You got to be ready because somebody may be hurt. We may only really have 4 corners. So if somebody goes down, you got to go play nickel, right? Like you got to really be ready for all the checks, be locked in all week. And what's tough about practice squad is if you don't get active for however many weeks, those weeks that you're not active, you're still studying as if you're going to be active because you might be on Friday. Yeah. So after a whole week, you got to know all the checks. You got to know all Brady or Manning's, whoever's checks, and know all the defensive changes and all the personnel things that you need to know as if you're starting. So that's tough too, man. Just working for nothing. You do all that work through Friday, flash cards at night, stretching at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, squeezing that extra protein shake down, getting that gallon of water in when you need it, just to like get your weight back and make sure my hammies aren't dry and I'm ready to perform if I need to perform. And and do all of the things, and then you're not active. You don't even suit out. That sucks.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And then you could also be cut at any moment. You could do all of that and then get cut week 5 just from practice squad, and then you're just at home. But then what's crazy is you start to linger around town a couple of days because they might sign you back, but they might not. So you've got guys who are just living there for like a month or two until this team picks them back up in a couple of weeks, or somebody else does and they have a reason to move. So it becomes like damn, I'm getting cut again. What's the next 48 hours look like, right?
Yeah.
Right, and then it hit Twitter, Facebook, and mom already heard about it or whatever, and then, the homies hit you up, and it's just like, damn.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's a shot to your pride for sure, man, so it hurts every time.
Well, and it's one of the things that I've always heard, especially about cornerbacks and, defensive backs, is that you really want to have like a short memory. You know what I mean? Like when a play goes wrong, you gotta just forget about it and move on. But it's hard because you do have to deal with a lot of things. And I'd say really what it is more than anything is resilience. And you're definitely showing a ton of resilience here. To be a practice squad person is to have to be, because like you say, I mean, first of all, it's tough because, like you said, you were kind of hoping to get drafted, and let's face facts. San Jose State, you're not necessarily on everyone's radar. You know what I mean? It's something that they had to go looking for. So that's tough, first of all, dealing with that. And then, of course, like you say, to be on a squad, to be cut, coming back, that's hard to deal with. You're yo-yoing all over the country, and especially there in Jacksonville, like you say, you got cut 3 different times in the same year, basically. If I'm you, I'm walking past, I'm finding out where the coaches live, and I'm like riding my bike past their house every day. Hey guys, what's up? Just remember me? Just throwing my name out there, Peyton Thompson, just in case you were thinking about getting someone else on that squad. Like
you're definitely the last one to leave the building for sure. You got to make that. I'll even sit here until everybody leaves, right? And I definitely got to be first in here, first one in the dining area, making sure you're first one, but then you also got to stay healthy. It's twofold. It's the 1% of the 1%, but you can't say there's not a little luck in there at some point. Yeah. I don't know if that's based on you living right or, it's just chance, but there is some luck in there too, man, because, I would say a lot of the, the best players in the sport ever may not have even made it to the league.
Yeah.
To be honest, right? Because of grades, they didn't make it through college because of grades or something like that, or they made some bad decisions, couple bad decisions when they were young, or just injuries.
Yeah.
How many like JUCO national players of the year or whatnot do we know from our area, that made that journey but just didn't make it? They went to some big SEC school and were starting and then couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those guys could have been first, second round, 10-year players too, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of luck in it. There's the guys that, whoever his name is, we got to look him up, that fell asleep in that meeting.
Yeah.
Right? He slept through one alarm. That he gave me an opportunity that took me 6 more years.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy that you unplugged his alarm the night before, too. Like, that was really genius of you. I mean, that's next level defense right there.
It snuck right in.
Yeah.
Well, that's the hard part. I feel like when I played at an even way smaller school in San Jose State, at Azusa Pacific, and I lived with 3 guys. One, you have the bunk beds, and then the guy in the living room and the couch, right? So we had a guy, I'll never forget him, Jason Anderson. He living on the couch, and then we had this other guy named Anthony Diggs, who is 6'3", 260. No, he's 6 foot. He should have been. If he was 6'3", I would have never met him. But he was 6 foot, so he was younger, or he was shorter, and was an unbelievable player. Like, I played slot, tight end, he was a D end and just blasted me every time. Was fast, was smart, was amazing player. Jason Anderson, I love him. He's a buddy of mine, but not really in the weight room, just kind of hanging out. But when the combine came to our school, he ran a 4.3 flat, an NFL 4.3 flat. Which is incredible. He gets signed that night. He plays for the Texans active roster for 2 years. Anthony, who was way better of a player in every way, just wasn't tall enough and never went anywhere. He got like an arena deal, and he's like, nah, I'm done. But you're right. It is. I think the main thing is speed is huge. That's one thing other than quarterback, tight end.
Can't be taught.
Yeah.
Can't be taught. It's one of the things. It's like being really big and just looking the part and being fast are two things that kind of always give you an upper hand if there's a decision to make, right?
So you ran a 4.5 or 4.4 in the NFL?
Pro day at San Jose, I ran like a 4.5 something.
So that's not enough, right?
4.52, let's call it, right?
Yeah.
I was pissed.
Yeah.
I thought it was so much faster than that. I blamed the field. I don't know what I blamed it on. But I clocked much better times in individual workouts with teams, which is when it really mattered. I don't know if that was due to the situation. I don't know if I was nervous on pro day, but I know that every team that I worked out for individually, I ran in the 3.4s or the 4.3s.
Well, 3.4, I was like, wow, man, you were blazing.
I ran in the 4.4s, and I ran a 4.3 one time ever.
That's big.
Yeah.
You have a difference between,
I would honestly say I'm probably like a 4.48 guy.
Yeah.
At that time, right? Like that's probably a realistic number. But that 4.3, I would thank Jerry Jones for just ever allowing me to have that opportunity. I happen to bring, when you come to the workouts, you bring, 2 or 3 different pair of cleats, whatever ones you think are going to make you fly that day. And then I had a pair of track spikes. So I put the track spikes on because the 40-yard turf that Jerry Jones had at Dallas was like golf green turf. Mm-hmm. It was like the turf at mini golf. So it was like there was no give to it. It was damn near concrete. So I definitely clocked a high 4.3 that day. And I'll claim that as the fastest day I ever ran. But I was probably realistically a very high 4.4 guy.
But that's a huge difference. As a cornerback, you run a 4.5 at a smaller D1 school, you're probably an afterthought. Luckily, those individual workouts is you need to be in the 4.4s. And it's crazy that little
helped me.
Yeah.
I think the discussion between my dad and Doug, my agent at the time, was like, hey, if he runs a 4.3, he's got a chance. And if he doesn't, and I think my dad the whole time was on the same page I was on, like, hey, he's going to run a low 4.4 at least. Like, he'll be moving. Because I was game fast, right? Like,
yeah,
I know I'm extremely fast. Like, in most situations, if I'm willing to get somewhere, like, I can try to run it faster than the other person, right? Game fast.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to run a 4.3, just didn't do it. So maybe that's the reason I went undrafted. But it all worked out.
I'd say so. And speaking of that resilience we were talking about, you like you said, you went through some tough times with Jacksonville. But then looks like for the last few years you were there, you were getting some significant playing time on the field there. And I mean, we're talking about you're on the same team with guys like Jalen Ramsey and Calais Campbell. I mean, that was one hell of a defense. That one in 2017 where you guys go to the AFC Championship. I mean, that is a stacked defense, and you got to get a lot of time with those guys. I mean, what's that situation like when you guys are going through the playoff situation? I mean, that's a lot different than regular season football.
What you'll notice is the 2 times I went to NFC Championship and the AFC Championship, we had a stacked defense.
Yeah.
Jacksonville was definitely a stacked defense. The offense was even really good at the time.
Yeah.
We weren't winning the turnover battle. I'll say that, which is probably, our demise at that time. I think every year we kind of did have a shot to win our division, which would usually lead us playing like the Bills in a wild card or something like that. But yeah, we ended up getting pretty far with that defense, man. Then we had to go win the turnover battle. That's what it turned into. Like Jalen, Calais, like all those guys, even Tashawn Gibson was our safety. We had some really good players. Aaron Colvin at nickel. We had Devon House, Prince Amukamara. We had great guys through the time that I was there. Will Blackman was there. We had some like great role players at that time that did really well and allowed us to. The big focus the whole time I was there was winning the turnover battle. But they gave me some significant time. Gus Bradley was the coach at that time. And they came from the Pete Carroll regime. So they were heavy on effort and competing and like just high character guys. So I knew that if I was able to come into these practices on a team that wasn't doing so well and apparently had some interest in me prior to, if I can make a splash here, I can stick. But a lot of that is going to be like, I'm going to have to be dominant on special teams so that they have to keep me. And then I have to provide value again on defense in order to stay. but I was on and off practice squad a little bit. But thanks to Gus Bradley and that whole regime, I mean, they really let me spin and play in a lot of games and get some good action.
Yeah, because you started in the playoffs, right? Or kind of rotated into the
playoffs. So there were a couple games I actually started at safety in the regular season, just due to injuries and things like that. And at that time, I had to be versatile. I had to know the whole playbook: corner, nickel, safety. Just because whatever they needed, I had to be the one guy they had to keep on the roster that could do everything. Knows all the special teams, knows every defensive position. So even if he needs to go in for a play, we need a guy like that, or go play the whole game. We can trust him to fill all of those roles. So, I mean, being on that team was fun, man. It was a ride, and we had. I mean, you guys know the roster. Who else was on that roster? Paul Postlesny, Telvin Smith.
Yeah, he's the guy.
I was going to say, I was looking it up earlier. I mean, I was looking also at the offense. That's when you had Bortles and Leonard Fournette running the ball. You had, I think, Allen Hurns and Robinson out there. I mean, it's a really talented team top to bottom. And, I was looking at it too, like just the regular season. You guys had a shutout there against the Colts. I mean, that's got to be great to shut out, especially division rival. I mean, that had to just feel amazing. You guys beat the Bills in the playoffs. You only gave up, I think, 3 points in that game. So clearly defense was big. I'm not going to mention, the next game where it was 45-42. Not as defensive, but still you won. You beat the Steelers in a shootout, which it didn't look like you guys had that kind of team. It looked more like, okay, we're good at winning these low scoring games, but then you come out guns blazing in that game too. I mean, that's got to be kind of an emotional roller coaster to go from this knock them down, drag them out 10-3, old school game to all of a sudden let's light up the scoreboard. I mean, that's got to be a wild ride.
I mean, like you said, that offense was stacked. So, as much as the games we didn't win, right? Like when they were on, they were on. I mean, there were times, I remember through those whole seasons, Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns were making incredible plays. Yeah. Incredible plays that probably set them up for the rest of their careers, right? But the plays that they were making for Blake in those games, man, those were very in place. And just like Pittsburgh, when they were connecting, they were connecting. There were just a lot of momentum, balls always progressively moving forward. And then we just had a lot of just like key players. I remember Denard Robinson was on that team.
Oh
yeah. Who's that?
Eric was on that team.
Who was that tight end? That
Mercedes Lewis, I think you guys had.
Yeah, he's still playing. That is insane.
That's a high character guy right there. Mercedes Lewis, bigger in real life for sure. Julius Thomas was on that team.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
We had a good team.
Yeah.
Very good team.
And then when you go from, Eric Bakhtiari was on, David's older brother. He's got a crazy story, like 8 teams, and went active roster, I think maybe like twice. But what was the paycheck like? I remember him saying something that's pretty significant. When you go from practice squad to active roster, it's a huge pay grade, right? Like, what are you talking about, like, as far as
league minimum at that time? So the way the NFLPA works out and the league has it set up, every year the league minimum increases a little bit, right? So it may go up 50 to 100,000 a year. At that time, that's how the CBA was worked out. At that time, I think it was like low 500,000s if you were active and you were just, very bottom of the roster getting paid minimum. And then that minimum goes up as well for how long you're in the league. So like if you're a 10-year vet, your minimum is much higher.
And so what do you make in a game like as a practice squad? Like what were you making before active roster?
A practice squad, you're not going to, at that time you weren't breaking 100,000. I think in Atlanta I was at like 90 something thousand.
For the whole year or for a game?
For the whole year.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then
I'm sure they get a little bit more now, but not much probably.
And do you get paid per game or is it a game check, right? Or how does that work?
I mean, it's just bi-weekly paychecks, whether you're on the team or you're not on the team. Like even if you were on the team, the first 4 weeks or the first 5 weeks and that next check comes up the 6th week, you'll just get the 1 week of pay when they pay out that next round of payments.
So it's
it was bi-weekly. So if you had 16 games at that time, you're getting paid 8 times.
Okay. So it's 5x when you're on the active roster then, right? Somewhere around there?
Oh, it matters.
Yeah. And then when you're in the playoffs too.
It matters.
Yeah. And then in the playoffs, you get bonuses for that as well, right?
Yeah, everybody's bonuses are different. Well, I'll say this: everybody gets a bonus, but you may get an additional bonus or incentive if you have that incentive in your contract.
And then how did it end, right? Because it seemed like when I look at your career, you were thriving, right? And you were 28. Was it an injury or what happened? Because it seems like you had a great thing going with the Jags, but 7 years is a really good career in the NFL. But what was it that ended it?
I think it was a combination of things. One, I was getting a little bit older and I had so much wear and tear because I didn't miss practices. I'm not sitting out. I'm not sitting out of practice. I need to be like I need to get a pick the week a starter is sitting out because he's injured or or hey, he's taking an off day because he had a tough game or he's got a shoulder or something. I got to get a pick that game or that week or specifically in that practice in order to stick. So, you gotta keep value and remain relevant and actually be an asset on defense. I think that's probably the most crucial way to stick on that roster and actually be able to get that difference in that paycheck.
Yeah. And then, what happened? Like, was it just, did you go to another camp or did they let you go after the year or what was?
They let me go at the end of the year. I was pretty much a captain throughout the back end of the season through playoffs all the way to the AFC Championship. And I think that value that I'm talking about, right, and just being a little bit older, I probably wasn't performing as well. I wasn't doing anything wrong, right? But, when I got done playing, I realized my knee was torn in multiple places. My hip was torn in multiple places. Like there's practices where I'm out there like probably limping through something because I'm not taking that time off. I'm not missing any practices like some of these other guys. So I think the wear and tear through the season, especially as we start going through playoffs and stuff like that, I'm running ones defense. If somebody's out, I'm on the twos defense playing a position. I'm also playing threes defense. So if we have 12 plays in one period, I'm in for 11 of them probably. If I'm not in, I'm probably on offense, even if I'm active, because there's only so many guys out there. So even if I'm active, I'm playing scout team offense. And then you're still taking all the special teams reps, which are full speed reps. There's only like 2 or 3 periods during a practice that are special teams, and they're full speed reps. So I think just through that time, like I know that last year as we were going to playoffs, there were sometimes I would sit out the first period of practice because I'd be like, hey, I'm not warmed up yet. I can't I can't go out there and go full speed and cover somebody on this dig. I'll let it up, right? I think it was a combination of that and then that value that we talked about, right? If I'm not getting to consistently be on the field I had moved to safety. We had Jalen Ramsey and all the guys that play corner and that wanted to play man on man and they were isolated on their islands, right? So at this time I'm playing safety and nickel mostly. And if I can't start for a consistent period of time, I'm always replaceable, right? You know what I mean? So unless you're somebody who's coming in, you're making an impact to the point, and I don't know if that was age, timing, situation, just wasn't making enough impact plays. It just wasn't enough to stick for them when they rolled back over to the next season. In addition, remember my league minimum's going up a little bit. I also want a new contract, right? Because I was an unrestricted free agent. You know how it works. If you're an unrestricted free agent, you're essentially theirs and they don't have to re-up you at any time. So the 2 years where I performed really well for them and had a lot of production and was playing a lot, they'd never had to give me a new contract because I was under that free agent contract, which is restricted, right? And so I couldn't go anywhere. So then by the time this rolls around, I'm a little bit older. And, now I didn't want anything crazy. I just wanted like $3 million for 2 years or something like that. Just give me like $1.5 million a year, play special teams and come in on defense, start when you need me to start type thing. And they just didn't renew it. And then I don't know what happened after that. I went to 4 or 5 workouts for different teams, worked out well. I mean, at this point I've been playing DB in the league for 5 years. So like going to a workout and running a 40 and, doing some DB drills, acing it. Right. So there were no workouts that were bad or that weren't better than the previous one. Right. Just don't get picked back up. Just not right place, right time for somebody else's situation or some other team, right? Especially now that my minimum's a little higher. So am I really going to come in and contribute? And do they see me as contributing on defense and special teams? And then, there's a little bit of luck in it too.
Yeah, and then at what point did you were like, oh, because earlier on in your career, you waited 3-4 months for a call. Was it at what point did you know you're like, okay, I got to figure it out now?
It's different. Now I'm vested. I've been in the league. I'm getting my pension. I'm getting all the things. I'm getting insurance, right? I'm getting all the things that you need because now I have 5 active seasons at least, right? Maybe 5.5 like fully credited seasons. So at that time, the money situation is different. I'm not broke, kind of living at my mom's house at this point. I got a little bit of gray hair and I've been through some things. And I think in total, I was hurting. Like I would do those workouts and I would kill them, but I would get on the plane and my knee would be swollen. My hip would hurt. Some things would hurt. I could put it together for a 30-minute workout and kill it. They would have no idea. But maybe that's some of the stuff that was killing me when I was in Jacksonville, man. Them seeing me getting off the plane hurting, me limping on Monday mornings, right? Me missing a series on defense because I'm in a boot or because this screw in my foot that I got in the off season just got stepped on or something like that. Like now I'm actually missing games because of injuries, like, regular player on the roster. So I think all of that kind of played into maybe why they didn't bring me back. But that's probably what played into another team not signing me too, I would assume.
Yeah, but what a great career. I mean, 7 years. I would have done anything to just strap on one time. Just even pregame, just catch a pass in pregame.
The terrible position is that your friend is the GOAT. You're not only did you have the dream, but he's living a dream that's bigger than the dream. And it's, but you live vicariously through that, man. I'm sure that makes you appreciate a lot for sure. That's a different, that life perspective is important.
It was tough because he was 3 years older, right? And so my family, my parents would go to all the Super Bowls, and it was tough to that expectation of, I'm like, man, like I just want a little piece of that. And I'm like, this guy wasn't the most touted guy in high school and barely got, into Michigan. And it gave me almost hope, like, man, if Tommy can do it, anyone can do it. But even with him, it was so lucky. I mean, Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, we might not ever be talking about him right now. So there is the element of luck, but like he was prepared. He was a psycho. He still is. Like he knows everything. He's the smartest guy in the room. His diet, the playbook, everything was impeccable. And that's why when it was his time, the luck came up, he was prepared. Just like you, when your time was, because people don't realize, like when I played in college, we go different formations for slot receiver and all that. You have to learn like 4 playbooks because it's every position. Same thing in defense. Like when our listeners are listening to this, oh, that's cool. We got to learn like 3 positions. No. People have no idea how much mental capacity that takes for 3 or 4 positions on defense is insane. One is hard enough in college. I can't even imagine 4 positions in the NFL and special teams. Like it's insane.
Stress. I don't know if you guys see, I got a lot of gray hair. It's from those weeks, especially when you're on practice squad and you're on the cusp of like, am I going to be active? Am I not? Like you're not getting that validation. You're getting these shit reps in practice. Like everybody knows you're going in with the 2s and the 3s because you're a sub, like all of that stuff. And I was a flashcards guy. So like for all 5 positions or 3 positions plus like a couple special teams positions, like I'm building out a flashcard stack every week that matches all the handouts they give us because they give you notes and handouts. Now that doesn't tell you that the next week this offense is for sure going to run this stuff, but here's some of their cues and things like that. And if you run them in practice, this is big. They set those situations up in practice, right? On third down and short, they run these 4 concepts. If they motion in this, or they somehow get into this formation or have a different way to getting into this formation, they like to run this concept, double ends with something, right? Like they got all these different concepts. If they do them in practice and they line up in those and you're in, no matter what position you're in, and you make the right check and make the play, like at least get a pass breakup or something, you'll stay on the roster for sure.
And that's hard, 4 positions.
So those flashcards are important. How did you study?
I didn't. That's why I never played past college. I didn't even play much in college, so that's why.
He's 6'4". That's how he studied. So it's one of those things too that gets overlooked a lot is the wear and tear aspect of playing a position like secondary, where it's a lot of cuts. A lot of high impact hits. I was in high school. I was playing offensive, defensive line. You're taking a lot of hits, but it's really close. You can kind of deal with that, but it's the ones that where someone's coming across the middle and you're laying into someone. And I was watching some of your highlights, especially like at San Jose State, also in the pros too, just laying some people out. I mean, these are high impact hits. So I was going to ask you before you even mentioned the knees and all that stuff. The injuries. I mean, first of all, how's your head? Did you have a lot of concussions when you were in the league? I assume you had quite a few. Yeah.
To be determined, my guy. To be determined. We don't know yet. Pray for me. You don't know about the head stuff, man. But there's, the stuff you hear about, guys, is nuts, man. And you hope that's not you. But there is a recklessness, abandonment to it. Like you're throwing your body right to make these plays and to do these things. And I think the hits that matter the most are the ones you don't see. It's like they run a screen, you get around, you make a little contact getting off the block, you get around the block and you go to hit the receiver and the D lineman's coming like full speed and just wham and takes you out from the side, right? Like that's the one that made your neck crack just now and the one that like hurts 5 years. That's the one that hurts 5 years later for sure. The wear and tear on the body, the knees and the hips. We'll go into a whole nother story here. So when you get done playing ball, I advise everybody to do this. It should be common practice now, but it wasn't when I got done. You go get full body everything, whether you have insurance or not. You go get full body evaluation, every scan you can get. I think I did a total of, and this is over months at a time, going to Green Bay to the foot specialist and going to Chicago to the neck specialist and going to LA to get my knees checked out. I think I did 18 hours of MRIs. And they hand you, like, I end up getting sent this package of just all these CDs of images. And it's showing the pre-existing things, the hardware that I've already had surgeries for in the off season. It's showing all of the things. My knee is torn in 7 places. It was like the top and underneath my patella, like MCL, ACL, and my quad was torn, like at almost all the attachments, like above the knee, like kind of all the way around the knee. It was like torn in like 2 or 3 different places. And the way that soft tissue stuff works too is like if there's any sort of breakage, it's a tear because it could go at any minute, right? And then both my hips torn labrums. One hip I had to essentially get replaced. So I mean, the wear and tear after, those are things I was playing with.
Does the NFL does it? Do they cover all that?
Getting treatment.
They don't want to. You got to go fight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're done playing,
it's really workers' comp and then plus some, because a line of duty is what they call it, is like injured in the line of duty. So you got to go prove all that stuff. And of course they say, oh, he never had his knee worked on in here.
Yeah. They want to not pay for it. But did they cover everything? How did it end up?
Because I'm vested, I have insurance when I get done. So it's covered no matter what. And then I dealt with the legal process in the background for a couple of years until they try to come agree with you on some number at some point.
Right. And then they settled with you and it was worth your while?
It's worth my while. It's worth my while. And then I also got workers' comp in Florida. Right. So that's a check every month for 8 years, essentially. Right. So like they both, I mean, it's a couple $1,000, but it's pays your mortgage and stuff like that. You're not mad about it. Sure. Settle there.
And then so I'm in my 40s now, my very early 40s, and my body is done, dude. My neck, I can't even lift up right now. I'm looking into stem cell. That's like the newest thing, right? Everyone's talking about that. They're going to Panama. They're going to Tijuana because all the San Diego doctors are going down there because you can do more stem cells, I believe, in other countries. The U.S. has a certain limit. What have you gone to that point? Because now I've done every MRI, I've been to every specialist. What is your main struggle as far as your body, and have you looked into stem cells at all?
I haven't looked into stem cells. I mean, out of all the things, I mean, I got screws in my feet, new-ish knee, new-ish hip, still one hip that probably needs some work. But my neck hurts the most.
Oh,
my
man,
neck hurts too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you remember the one play?
Yeah.
That it happened? I do too.
Yeah. I had it was this Olympic is Dominique de Gramont. He was Olympic hurdler for Haiti. And at Azusa Pacific, we had your clock could start, stop. So a lot of these guys get locked up and their D1 clock would run out. He went to the Olympics. So he was like 210, 6'1", 6'2", and ran in the 4.3s. He was an Olympic track athlete. And he hit me so hard over the middle that I got ear hold so hard that my ear pad fell out. And he picked it up and he's like, "Here you go, B." It was the most violent hit I've.
Practice?
Yeah, it was in a scrimmage.
Across the middle in practice?
Dude, I played back in 2002, 3, 4 back then when we had three practices a day. So we didn't have our camps in college were 3 full speed practices a day. Like insane. They didn't have like you have one, full speed and then you took the next day off. I was there where it was just brutal. Like everyone's blown ACLs. We had a guy get his leg amputated. Like it was insane. It was the wild, wild west. I can't even imagine the 80s. Like, but yeah.
I always laugh when I look back at some of those guys that hold some of those interception records. Man, they could get away with PI. You could PI them all the way down the field. You better have it.
Yeah.
Same thing, just back to the 80s. But I remember the play too, and my dad does as well. My dad's biggest thing, man. My dad's biggest thing, he always said, I remember it when I was a little kid, keep your head up. Do not hit with your head down. And that's your instant reaction when someone's coming at you. You have to go hit something bigger than you is like, I'll run full speed into it, but I don't want to look at it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to just take it in the face. When going at it face first and going face to face into contact or putting your face on somebody's chest is the safest way to hit somebody, right? Even though that's the scariest, right? And I remember, bro, I was running down. I was playing the L5 or the R5, like right next to the kicker. And I ran down in New York. We were playing the Jets, and Cromartie was returning.
Oof. Yeah.
I got around. I don't know how I got around the double, but I ran right around, and it was kind of like he saw me and I saw him. I got to him faster than I thought, so it surprised me. And it surprised me. He just kind of stopped, and we ran into each other. But I put my head down, like right on the side of his hip, and there's not a pillow that fits right since. Like I cannot find a pillow that's right ever since that. And my dad texted me. I remember because I obviously left the game like the next series, right? Like it wasn't too much longer. I stayed in the game. I was definitely on like concussion protocol, make sure his neck's good. But I got a text from my dad in the locker room because obviously it was televised. He was like, keep your head up. It's too late at that point, but I'll forever remember the lesson. It didn't get me until I was 27 years old, but it got me.
Yep. We had Josh Emmett. He's a UFC guy. I don't know if he had that crazy knockout last week. Sacramento guy. He does the backflip. He's out of Uriah's camp. He put some guy in a seizure like 2 weeks ago. It's crazy. But anyways, he went down to Joe Rogan, the place Joe Rogan reps, out in Tijuana, and they do all the scans, they do everything, and then they put you under, and they do your neck, your back, and then so I'll let you know. I have a contact over there.
How similar is that to PRP?
What my belief is, or what not my beliefs, I've never done it, but the knowledge I've been researching it a lot, and why these guys are going to Mexico, Panama, like they got the money, right? Like David Bakhtiari signed $100 million deal. He went to Panama. It's because they can do more stem cell when you're not in the U.S. There's a specific amount you can't go over, I believe. So they do your whole body. So they scan everything like you're saying. They'll do, the hand, knee when you're awake, and then they'll put you down. They'll do your neck. So he's a week in, and he's report. I just talked to him today, but I'll let you know. I think it's pretty significant, but maybe if they're listening to this, they'll hook it up. We'll give them a little shout out. And but I at this point, I've done the PRP. I've done cortisone. It doesn't work. Does that work for you?
And I didn't mean to void your question earlier with my story, but I've done all the PRP stuff in multiple places, hamstrings, stay alive during the season. But I don't think I've done stem cell just specifically. I think I was like stopped at PRP. It was as far as it went. I mean, besides taking Toradol during games.
And it didn't work, right?
It was ever needed. I mean, there's definitely things that make the pain go away for the time being. But as far as fixing the problem, no.
Yeah.
I haven't gone. Hey, but if you go, I'll go.
Let's go. Do a little Tijuana trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the last time I was in Tijuana, I think it was back when it was an acceptable family trip. If you were a SoCal person, you go to Tijuana for the day.
We go at night, Tuesday college nights, and that was not acceptable family night for sure.
That's not it.
No. And then I know you got a pretty busy schedule, but I wanted to touch real quick on after the NFL, because it seems like you have a really successful real estate career. I remember you're flipping houses and doing all kinds of real estate. I read something where you took like a couple, like it was like 50, 60,000 and turned it into, I believe it was, 8 figures, 9 figures, something crazy like that. Tell us about that transition and what you're doing. Is I think a lot of ex-athletes that listen to this, there's a lot of stories on the other side where they blow their money, they're broke. This is kind of a cool story with you. You've gone the opposite way. I think you probably made more money than you did in the league, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I did. I have gotten to that point now. The transition was, I was always a bubble guy. I was always a guy that I thought every year was going to be over, especially after that gap between Atlanta and Washington. I already had a real taste of it, right? Like I can't go into that situation surprised ever again, right? Because then there's the mental to get through to it. And you typically realistically, you don't have time for the mental. Because now you're 25 plus years old, right? And whether you made any money, you blew all your money, or you saved some money, the checks are done. So there's no more income and you don't have any residuals built up. It wasn't the time that now, I hate to be aging myself. I keep doing that. It was only 5 guys, it was only 5 years ago. But at that time, people weren't setting up their residuals right and getting revenue streams set up at that point. And so I was kind of always prepared. Every year I was, staying with business owners in the off season while I was in Newport, or just doing, different things here and there to kind of make sure I'm ready when it happens. I think real estate was always, real estate was something that I always thought I wanted to do. I just didn't want to start in real estate being a real estate agent. I didn't want to kind of start at the bottom and, kind of cold call and get my sales to kind of build my rapport, right? So my thing was I've always been a frugal guy. Like all I need is some fresh white kicks, man. I'm not really, I don't need much. But my thing's whatever I do in football after that stint of real estate. So how I get into real estate is going to determine, or will be determined by how much money I save. So long story short, I was very frugal. I didn't keep any art on my walls. I was ready to get cut every day, even when I knew I was safe and would be team the next year and was a part of next year's discussions for the team and things like that. I was always ready to move it any day if they cut me. I ended up, I would say, from the numbers we've talked about with a lot of other guys, I think I probably walked away with more than most people walked away with for the time that I played and the contract that I had. just super frugal with everything. And what I did with that is when I went back to California for about 6 months, I moved out to Austin January 1st. I just decided I was moving somewhere else. I had to get back to the South. California was too expensive. And I just came from like a non-income tax state in the South. And now I'm in the Bay Area. And I was like, my checks aren't going to go long. So I don't, like, my window for figuring my life out is very based on how much money I spend, because there's no money coming in, right? Like, all the insurance stuff takes years to pan out. So that's not coming in, right? The only thing I have at that time is insurance that's free and getting paid for, right? And then the NFL will pay for you to go to school if you want to.
That's cool.
Type stuff, right? So I was trying to make that decision. Meanwhile, I found out I need all these surgeries, right? So I move out to Austin. I get established in Austin, fly back to California, get the knee and hip surgery on back-to-back Mondays, fly back to Austin the next day. Shouldn't have done that. I was terrible. Because then you're at risk for blood clots and all that other stuff, bro. I was just pushing it. Like, had a hip surgery,
was barely out of it. The next Monday, I had like a deep knee surgery. So then I spent that next, year in Austin hobbling around in my knee brace. And what I did is I called it Coffee for Degrees. I decided I was going to meet with as many business professionals, CEOs, C-suite people I can meet with, right? And just use this, hey, I used to play in the NFL and I don't know anything and I have all this money and I don't know what to do with it and I don't want to fuck it up type story, right? Can I buy you a cup of coffee for 30 minutes of your time? And I would hobble in there while I was on my scooter. I had the crutches. They were still wondering how I drove there. You got to just use the bad leg.
Yeah.
And every week I would meet with 4 or 5 new people and I would ask those people at the end of that meeting, thanks for your time, obviously, but I would ask those people, hey, is there anybody else in Austin that you think I should meet as I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do in real estate or whatever I'm going to do to make money? I don't know if that's investing. I don't know if that's, being a real estate agent. I don't know if I become a builder. I don't know what it looks like. Right. And I ended up taking a liking to a developer out here and a family out here who, they're very good connectors out here. And they kind of brought me on, allowed me to participate in some investments. And they allowed me my agreement with them, with the head guy, Brett Ames, bless his soul, was I would invest in 2 of your projects. 1, thanks for the opportunity to invest in your projects, but I'll invest in your projects if you allow me access to your calendar. And he was like, access to the calendar. I was like, I just want to be able to come to all of your meetings, like once I can walk. And like, I'm giving you, $500,000 probably, right? It's half of what I got. I'm giving this to you. Hopefully these things work out. I've never done anything like this before. Don't know anything, but let me have access to your calendar. So I essentially just showed up to meetings with important people that he was having, because he was also a commercial developer and was developing some residential communities out here in West Austin. And the meetings that he was okay with, I would follow him to those meetings, dress appropriately, bring a notebook, don't say shit. Introduce myself. Hey, man. And, Brett was a good guy, man. He'd be like, hey, this is Peyton. He played football. He's just tagging along. Continue. And I just sat there and I just learned. So through that 2 years of those 2 spec houses being built, I just ingrained myself more in their company and just tried to learn, from the salespeople, the marketing people, how he's handling his investor relations. Like, what do pro formas look like? What do numbers look like? Like, what is permitting? Like, what is the build process, right? Kind of going through all that. And I free willingly got to participate as much as I wanted to in that. I could just show up to the site any day and ask people questions. After that, right before COVID hit, I started going to do my own thing closer to actual downtown Austin, getting my real estate license so that I could get some cash coming in, because these projects were going to take 2 years to pay out, right? So my number is dwindling. Right now I had a significant amount and I'm cool. I'm comfortable, but it is going down. I mean, there's no way around it. Just living expenses, bachelor, things are just, you're doing whatever, flying wherever, doing whatever. Right. So that number was going down. So I started working in real estate, started doing brokerage here in Austin. That was doing really well for me. But then I also started doing my own projects. We now have 11 projects in the pipe right now.
Wow.
We've exited 7 projects to date over the last 3 years. All have been successful projects. All the projects have made money. I think the key to that has been cutting the middleman out and learning enough to where I can like actually make decisions that affect the outcome of things. And if I do the numbers ahead of time and they work, there's no middleman or some other third party that's taking from these numbers. So it would have to like more than dive and fail for me to lose money.
So you put half your net worth into this guy for those 2 projects, right? And you're like, hopefully this works out.
To be more specific, so it doesn't sound like I just gave him a bunch of cash.
Yeah.
Right. All of my money is essentially managed by Morgan Stanley, right? And I have a team there. Due to the assets I have in there, I was able to pull a line of credit leveraged against all of my assets used for projects. So I used the cash from a line of credit to inject into projects instead of like actually giving all of my cash.
Got it.
Now you have to pay for some of that money, but at least you get to keep all of your cash, right? You just hope those projects work so you don't lose your cash. Whatever you took off the line, you got to pay back, right? So that's the reality of it. And as long as you can do that, you didn't lose any money. It's not an L, but that's how I've slowly kind of taken the side door into real estate. And that was always the plan. So, the blessing here is I got exactly what I asked for to do what I wanted to do to propel me to the next step. So it all worked out. It all worked out how it was supposed to. But right now I'm pretty much, most of my business is brokerage. We're doing spec builds and custom builds. And then we're building out our portfolio of midterm rentals and short-term rentals from California to Dallas and Austin.
And you got some, I was looking at a couple of your projects. You have some of your childhood friends involved in it, right?
Yeah, there's 2 ways I can spec out my business, right? I can go get a bunch of investors and just open up a fund eventually, or I can have 4 or 5 people that have big balance sheets and can share on some of this capital when we got to buy projects. And I can just have fun doing deals with those select individuals, and deals go well and we'll always do bigger deals. So it's just kind of a good relationship to build there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Kind of do projects that way. So, I got deals with, past teammates, childhood friends, whoever's, high character people that will allow you to educate them as we participate in these deals. And we usually try to trade transparency and education for the investment, just like I did on my first one. And that kind of helps our small group learn, and it makes everybody want to invest more and keep rolling over their funds because they have the transparency that I have, as if, the first year or 2 I just learned, and kind of how I took in that information and the verbiage and the dialogue that I was using that made it a little bit more simple for me to digest, being new to real estate, and like being able to translate that to them and get them to kind of understand and digest that same information that way without it being, too high level where you're not even really understanding what people are saying when they're telling you what's going on with your money.
And you're making money now, not ruining your knee, your hip, it's got to feel good, right? Like, this is way easier.
The difference is real estate, and I'm sure you guys both know, you write a lot of checks to get one check.
Yeah.
So I wasn't unfamiliar with only getting paid a couple of times a year and having to, understand that lifestyle and what that's like, and, the comfort or the discomfort of, not getting money for a while, but knowing that you're getting money. That's kind of similar to like, hey, we got a whole off season with no check. And you might not get another check if you don't make the team in September.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of, I've operated on that same mentality, right? We can call it frugal, but just kind of keeping everything pretty tight and making sure it's deployed in the right places.
And I feel like all the shit you went through, all the cuts, the practice squads, the injuries, it wouldn't allow you to get that initial investment to start what you're starting now. So in the end, and it opens a lot of doors. Like, I played 7 years in the NFL. Like, people like that. They gravitate toward that. Tell me about Tom Brady. Tell me about Peyton. Also, give me this listing. Give me this property. like you're a smart guy. You can definitely use that to your advantage too.
It's helpful. It definitely opens doors, right? It gives you some rapport, a little badge or a little stamp to stand on sometimes in conversations. It's a good introduction. More than anything, if you carry yourself correctly, right? And we talk about high character person, right? People will understand that you can operate in luxury real estate settings, or that you can handle big contracts or high net worth clients, right? Because there's a level of like, I've always been I've always had access to be popular. I chose to be an under the radar guy because I'm discretion is key. I don't need everybody in my business or your business or need to be name dropping, right? And kind of having that experience in life and saying that I played a couple of years in the league and then doing what I'm doing in real estate, I think people are able to assume that and be like, hey, listen, he'll be comfortable in these big situations, or if we're talking about a really big deal or negotiating something on the spot, like he's played in front of 100,000 people getting his ass whooped by Bama. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And still finding ways to make plays or show some resilience, right? Like he can handle this. And that, I think that really helps in your transition too. So, the presence you provide is important in that transition. But that one deal you were talking about with my childhood friend, this is crazy, right? This is one of those I told you so moments, and I love him for it, right? So he was in tech, he wasn't in real estate.
Was this Nico?
Yes, yeah. Nico. Wasn't in real estate at all. He moved out here to Austin during COVID because he was in Oakland and it was just, they were in lockdown. So he comes out here and I keep telling him like, hey, we got to do a deal. We got to do something. But I'm still new in real estate. And like my first couple of deals that I got in, they still haven't exited. Right. So now I'm kind of just like a new broker with some cash deployed. I've got no rapport. But I'm talking to him every day, like, bro, I've got these plays lined up. Let's make these plays. And he was like, I don't know, bro. Or not, I don't know, but like, I got to learn more before I do it, before I dive in, right? Because we're boys and, it's got to go right. Right. So we did as much as we could. We went and got a property. I want to say we might have both. I think we both spent like 70,000, maybe 70,000. Within, I had to go fight for like a bunch of stuff to get these entitlements and whatever. So it's a year and a half down the line. I ended up selling it for like, I think it was $500,000 more, and I didn't do anything to it. Right. For half of it, just Austin was booming and just right play, right time. Right. And this is one of a couple that we've done and that have panned out like this, but it went up like $500,000. So then we're trying to learn about 1031 exchange. So now we're in a real life situation. I've been telling people about 1031 exchange. I've been educating clients on 1031 exchange just from my studies and talking to people in the business, but I've never done a 1031 exchange. So what I come to find out is there's all these rules and regulations. And after you sell your property and you make that profit, it essentially sits in an escrow account by a 1031 exchange officer. And you have like 90 days to identify what the next property is that you're going to buy, or your money has to sit in there for, I don't want to misspeak, but I think your money has to sit in there for like 6 months or something like that before you can get it back if you decide not to do the 1031 exchange. And then it can be taxed as well when you get it back at that time. So the whole point of the 1031 exchange is you got to go make a play. And if you go make a play, you can defer that tax and use all that profit to go buy something else. So what we did is I found this random Piggly Wiggly grocery store and now Nico's on board. He's like, bro, you made us a bunch of money. Our return was crazy. Like not only did we get our equity back, yeah, we both got hundreds of thousands of dollars more and I didn't have to do anything. So he's like, hey, go find the next one, right? And I was like, okay, pressure's on again, right? We identified something in Dallas. We hadn't had anything in Dallas at that point. And it's literally a Piggly Wiggly grocery store. It's 100 years old. And somebody turned it into a duplex. Wow. So they like split it down. Like the brick exterior is the same, but they split it down the middle and put drywall kind of inside of it. And it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths on each side. It's in East Dallas, right next to Lower Greenville and like Deep Ellum. I don't know if you know the area, but they're like cool bar, high traffic, traveling kind of places to go. The first place that pop up on Google if you're visiting Dallas. Mm-hmm. And we end up grabbing that thing for like $1.5 million, and we used all the cash from that to do it. So it was no additional cash. And we went in and re-renovated it, like themed all the rooms, made it feel like a real Airbnb, and that thing's killing.
Wow.
So that's probably what you saw.
Yeah.
That's probably what you saw. Okay. Yeah. That was that play right there. Yeah. And we were all juiced about it because it was like, that first deal lives on forever. Yeah. It keeps feeding us type.
Well, and if you do it with your boys too, like people you grew up with, it just hits a little harder,
And that's my boy too, man. That's been my best friend since like 5th grade, right? So it was good to get a double win out of that one, man. So it would be forever on the highlight reel for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know your time is valuable. We appreciate you coming on. It's a cool story to hear your through your NFL career and then now just killing it in real estate. And we appreciate your time. It was awesome catching up. I'm going to let you know about that stem cell. We're going to do a little different trip to Tijuana than we're used to and get fixed up. But we appreciate you coming on. I think a lot of our listeners get a lot from it, and a lot of the athletes too that are scared. We always talk about action with all the CEOs we're dealing with, and you had to pull the trigger. Investing $1.5 million in a supermarket, crazy, right? But it worked out, and we always talk about that. All the successful guys on here, they always take action. So we thank you for coming on, man. It was great catching up. Glad to think things are going well. You got a baby daughter. You got Nina in your corner. You're doing well, man. I'm proud of you, and it was great to have you on.
Yeah, man. All blessings, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been nice to relive some of these memories. I'm telling you, I gave y'all some juice that I don't think I've ever said out loud before. You know what I mean? I don't think Nina knows half of that stuff, man. I just gave you. I might need to go to therapy after some of that stuff.
We're just incredible interviewers. We just pulled it out of you. That's all it is. But
well studied. You knew what you were doing.
Yeah. I'm curious. Is there a place people could go to look at, see what you're doing? Like, is it former Jaguar real estate or just resilient as fuck? Like, what do you guys have it as?
No, you can obviously find me on Instagram, but the website for all the real estate stuff is vervrnd.com, VERVRND.com. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions, man. I'm big on but taking action on, meeting with young guys once a week, once a month.
What about old guys?
Yeah,
absolutely. Young in the game. I mean, you know what I mean? Just whenever necessary, man. And even if that's hopping back on here and crushing a couple of topics, or you guys just want to talk about some stuff, man, let me know. I'm an open book. I'm still learning every day, as we all are. But I appreciate you guys having me, man. Happy Friday. I look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, it'll be tough to find time because Brandon also spends a lot of time with young guys about once a week, so it's hard to find time.
There it is. The Bay Area joke. I knew it would come out.
Exactly.
So he's the closer.
Yes.
That's what I try to do. Thanks again so much.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate your time, man.